All right, well, good evening, everybody. I want to thank you for joining us. Tonight, I think is going to be a very helpful session because literally this one tonight, the subject that we're going to talk about, call control and handling of objections, is something that we are doing specifically because of feedback from you guys. So first of all, I want to tell you, if you're having a struggle in an area about anything, make sure you get back with us and let us know, because we can either refer you back to something that's already in the course, or we can do like this with our weekly training session and do something kind of new, if you will, that we can bring to your attention. So I'm going to, for the moment, go widescreen with me just for the moment, for the very beginning. And I'm going to cover that handout that I emailed out to everybody. And if you're watching this and you're saying, hey, Mike, I don't have a copy of the handout, just let me know via email and I'll get it back to you. But to put this subject in context, and I'm only going to spend about 10-12 minutes going over this, but to put this in context, you remember the overall sales cycle process, where we have phone call number one, where we are introducing ourselves to the client, building rapport, making a connection, and hopefully getting a CQF filled out. Then we go back and we do research on our part, interfacing with all the carriers that we work with to come up with solutions for the client. We then get back together with the client, like Katie did this week, present a solution, and they either purchase that night, or they say, like they did to Miss Katie, hey, I like that. Can you do something for my wife too? They get back together in a further phone call. Everybody's happy. We bring some solutions to the client. We're happy. They're happy because we brought solutions to them. We fill out applications, get them submitted to the insurance companies, hopefully get them approved. Policy gets delivered to the client. So what tonight is all about, this call control, is how do we make progress in that very first phone call? And I just call that call control. Basically, you have to decide that you are the person that's in charge of the conversation. Now, that does not mean that you are the person talking all the time, but it means how that call is going to go is going to be up to you and the way you control the conversation. So I'm going to talk first about what happens when you lose control of the call. What does that look like? Well, if you're filling out a client qualification form, a CQF, while you're talking to the client, either that or a FIF, a financial information form, if you're not in control of the phone call, then you're not asking the questions and getting the client to talk about the information that you need to fill out that CQF in a complete manner. So what a lack or loss of call control looks like is a CQF that has only the bare minimum of information on it. That's how you know you didn't control the call. Now, I think equally and more important, what a loss of control feels like by you, the agent, is you having a lot of anxiety during the call. Now, what that anxiety often leads into is you literally giving control up to the client, and then the phone call ending without a CQF being done, without a connection with the client being made, and without you really getting a sense of what it is the client wants, and more importantly, why they want it. So this subject is really key to being successful in this business. So in the handout I sent out, I just kind of put together some thoughts that I'm just going to hit really quick. Number one, remember that the only time we're calling people is they have asked for our help. So we are not cold calling people. It's not the way we do business here at Maneuver Financial and Symmetry Financial Group. We are only getting in touch with either people that asked for our help through some lead source, or someone that was a referral from somebody we talked to, and they've given permission to that person to have you reach out to them. So that means you're not bothering people when you call them. Now, you might be interrupting their day in the moment, but you are not bothering them. You're not trying to sell them anything. So remember that. Put that mental attitude in your head as you're getting started. So these are what we call service-oriented conversations. And I always direct people back to that 5-minute April McCrimmon course lesson that's in our training program because she does these first 3 steps really, really quick and very, very effectively. You build brief rapport with the person that you're talking with, and you're basically communicating them that your job is to learn enough about them so that you can help them. Part of that initial conversation may be their quick answer to the question, well, why are they looking for insurance now? What I want you to understand is whatever they say first, more than likely, that is their head answer. It's the logical part of their brain saying, yeah, I know I need to do this. It's just logical that I do. The problem is logic doesn't make a sale. That requires emotion. So once you have a basic idea of what it is they're looking for and why they're willing to talk with you, the next step is to go through a very brief self-introduction and the purpose for your call. Now remember, the purpose of your call is not to sell them something. That's why you and I are different. The purpose of this first phone call is simply for you to learn about them and discover what they feel they need and why they want to solve this problem. That's a brief introduction. That should be 60 to 90 seconds top for you to introduce yourself. In the general life script that's in the training program, there's a really good summary there of what that looks like when I do it. By the way, feel free to take that, steal that, change that, modify it any way you want so that it reflects you. But I think that handles that very effectively, so I'm not going to go into it now. Then as the phone conversation moves on, we're in step number 4, where a back and forth, give and take conversation happens between you and the person that you're speaking to. As that conversation's going on, you're learning about their family, you're learning about their children, you're learning about their grandchildren. I can tell you as a grand new grandpa, I want to talk about my grandchild. I even have pictures that I show people, and they always say the same thing, oh, he's so cute, which of course I love. Guess what? Your folks you're talking to, if they've got kids and grandkids, they want to talk about them too. The more interest you take in their family, that is real interest on your part, the more they're going to respond to you with more complete answers. Because the problem we're trying to solve, if it's mortgage protection, it's to keep the family home in the family and to keep the family in the family home. That's a very important, deep emotional why, but you've got to get them to talk about that. As they're talking, some of you are very digitally oriented and want to be filling out CQFs when you're in the call. I would recommend that you fill out the CQF and learn about the client with a pen and paper. You don't have to be filling out the CQF form, but have a pad of paper running as you're learning stuff, you're writing stuff down. When the phone call's over, you can summarize all of that, fill out the CQF adequately. You'll also then be able to identify anything that you maybe should have asked that didn't. If there was a pertinent question you should have asked, you can actually just send a follow-up text message and say, oh, by the way, one thing I forgot to ask is, pose that question to them. They respond. You then say, thank you very much. And I look forward to seeing you at the day and time that we're going to talk again. That's, by the way, a really good technique to reinforce the upcoming meeting. Now, this is a step that I learned that, frankly, took me a while to learn, but it's very powerful when you're doing phone-based conversation selling. And that is an end of the call summary. So after you've learned enough about them and the problems that they want to solve, you want to make this conversation be a positive experience for them. So you summarize what you learned about them, their family, kids, grandkids, and why they're looking for a solution. What you're trying to do is to get them to agree with the emotional why that you are telling them that they already told you. So you're reinforcing that emotional why that they've already communicated to you. You then reinforce your commitment to them that you're going to work to find a solution that they are going to be happy with when you speak with them again. See, what we're doing is we're locking down that next conversation. And then you're going to just reassure them that you're going to find the best solution at the lowest possible cost. Because make no mistake about it, there's a part of their brain that thinks you're trying to rip them off somehow. It's just natural skepticism. And there's actually nothing wrong with it because it will protect them from the sharks of the world that really are out just for themselves. We're a little different, of course. And then what you're going to want to try to do is to get a verbal agreement that they're eager to hear the solutions that you're going to talk about. In that process, you'll establish a firm follow-up appointment with a specific day and time. Should be 12 to 24 hours away. And it's always a good idea to, in some way, leave them laughing or have a little joke. Heck, even if you have to make a little joke of one-liners that you got to tap into, because maybe jokes aren't your thing, just reiterate, hey, listen, when we get back together, remember you mentioned such and such? I want to kind of come back and revisit that because that sounds like a really fun story. Okay, awesome. Listen, until then, I look forward to talking to you Thursday at 4. Just know this, between now and then, I got your back. So that's just kind of the big picture control of what you're trying to do in that first phone call. Build rapport, learn enough, fill out the CQF, summarize the call, and set up the follow-up. Okay, so any questions on that before I move on to anything else?
Nope, that was really good.
Thank you. All right, and if not, then I'm going to move on. The next page is really kind of a cheat sheet for new folks doing this. And that is just understanding, first of all, there's a difference between head knowledge and heart knowledge. And so what we're trying to get to is we're trying to get them to come out of their head and to reveal to you their emotions and their heart. So how do you do that? Well, you do that by doing a good conversation, building good rapport, sharing a little bit about your purpose, and helping them understand that you're different, everything we just talked about. So how do you do that once you start having conversations with them? Is you are, in essence, all of these statements are just ways to encourage them to continue to speak. So if they share something with you, you simply say, well, hey, thanks for sharing that with me. I appreciate that. Sharing that helps me learn you a little bit, learn about you a little bit better. If they ask you a question and you know you're going to cover it later, hey, listen, that's a great question. We are absolutely going to get to that in just a moment. I promise you. Now, let me finish this conversation we were just having about X, and we'll come back to your question. Hey, if I don't remember to do that, make sure you call me on it, okay? Jot that down real quick if you got an extra sheet of paper, and we'll come back to that before we're done. Okay, if it's something simple, you can throw that out there right away and answer it quickly, and then say, I'll elaborate that more in a minute, okay? If they start asking questions like, well, why do you need to know all this stuff about me? All I want is a quote. You can say, well, my intention really in this conversation is just to learn about you, to learn about your family, to learn about your situation, so that I can then figure out how to assist you in the most effective way. Does that make sense to you? Now, sometimes these conversations can get a little lengthy. They start getting a little impatient. You say, okay, look, this shouldn't take very much longer. I just want to make sure I fully understand so I can help you the best. So tell me again why this is important to you. Now, whatever they say, a good follow-up is always, well, tell me more about that. I'm not looking for heart information here. I'm not looking for head information here. I'm looking for heart information. So when you said that, Mr. Jones, what exactly did you mean by that? Now, in your mind, Mr. Johnson, how would that situation be resolved and you'd feel good about that resolution? If I was able to find a solution for you, what solution do you think would make you the happiest? You've all heard me say this before. We all want a $1 policy, $1 million policy for $1 a day. Of course we do. But if we're unable to find that pie in the sky, what would make you the happiest? Well, I'd like to get the mortgage paid off and I'd like to only, spend less than $100 a month. Okay, great. Those are numbers you can write down, and that gives you a target when you start doing research on their behalf with all the different carriers. Okay. And then the last one on that page says, why is X important to you? That's actually really, really powerful. And here's how you do it. Here's how you do it. If you say, I want to leave some money to my kids. Well, why is leaving money to your kids important to you? And they might say, yeah, when my dad died, he didn't leave me anything, and I felt kind of jilted. I just don't want to do that to kids. I want my kids to have a really good memory of me. So why is your children having a good memory of you really important to you? Notice the way I emphasize that, by the way. Why is X important to you? Their answer, why is their answer important to you? And then whenever they answer, well, why is that important to you? Now, this sounds weird to ask the same question 3 times, and you think it's just kind of weird. It's really super powerful, because what happens is the first answer they generally give you is the head answer. The next answer they give you is the heart answer, but only the surface level of the heart answer. The next answer they give you, or maybe the one after that, is the one that actually has meaning to them deep in their emotional psyche. And if you're listening and listening well and actually repeating back their words to them, they know you're listening, and that actually builds trust. Now, if you want more information on this particular question, you can pick up a book called Values-Based Selling by Bill Bachrach. That's Bachrach. Bachrach, Bill Bachrach, Values-Based Selling. That's where I learned about that question about 25, 30 years ago. Okay, so questions on any of that keeping the conversation flowing stuff? We are apparently not very talkative tonight. All right, Kev, before we go into the objections part of the handout, which I'm not specifically planning on covering item by item, what thoughts, sir, do you have on either anything I've already said, or building rapport, or handling objections with people?
Well, you sure you want to film this? I always got to ask you. No, I mean, everything you said is true. I just approach mine a little differently than, a lot of other people. And because just like you said, it's an emotional purchase a lot of times. But, when you're overcoming objections, there's always a reason why. Finding that reason why is the bottom line. I mean, each and every one of you guys know. And to me, this is, and I've never told anybody this before, but I use this, or I used it all the time. When you're getting a quote for somebody, when you ask them, hey, if you don't mind, I want to give you a quote. If I can save you some money, you're not being a used car salesman, but that fact that you're saving them money automatically puts a little, bell going off in their head. All right. You've got to earn that trust. You're doing an elevator speech, and literally you may only have a minute with these people. You may have less than that. So you have to convey so much information and keep it to where they can understand it in that minute, if that's all you've got, to get them to be able to go to that next minute. All right. And I've always done mine through humor and a lot of different things, and using my, Southern speech and, dialogue, whatever you want to call it. And to me, the strongest thing I've ever done is, hey, Mike, is it okay if I run you some quotes? If I can save you a little bit of money, it's, what's the harm, right? But then on the same token, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make them drink. And I always tell them that, if I'm running the quotes, hey, Mike, insurance is really, it's not rocket science. It's simple math. And you seem like you're, pretty good in math. If I can save you a couple $100 or give you more value from what you've already got, using that aspect of it. And like I said, I'm a lot better at this at 11 o'clock in the morning than I am, now. But I mean, that to me, that's the biggest thing I always use. It's not rocket science. It's simple math, because and like I said, I always set it up. Mike, you seem like you're pretty good in math. Well, this is not rocket science. It's simple math. And if I can, show you a way to either save some money or, provide more of a financial secure future for you and your family, would you not be, open to that? With your permission, I'd like to go ahead and send you some quotes. I just need to get some real, information to kind of give me a guideline, and we'll go from there. And like I said, there's a million different ways. And if they shut you down on that, you pivot, like we've talked about, to the drug coverages. If you're on Medicare, can I see if I can save you from, on drug coverage? Or if your wife, or you've got a child that's, disabled, something, they're having to do prescription drugs, there's always a way that you can turn that shutdown into something else if they give you time for it. The big factor is getting that time. And that's where to me, the rapport is the end all be all. And like I said, I come out and just try to have fun with people. Just like, so many people, I couldn't tell you the number of times somebody's told me I'm not interested. Right. And finally, I just started saying, well, me either, but it's my job and I got to do it. You wouldn't believe how many times people cracked up at that. And it's that same thing. I mean, sorry, you froze on me. I was like, is he hearing what I'm saying? But no, I mean, it's that type of mentality. You've got to understand, you've only got a few minutes to get this done if you're going to do something one way or another. Don't be afraid, be fearless, and have fun with it. Now, I've got more sayings. I've got tons of them. I need to write them down and just give them to you guys. I mean, because all those little things, it doesn't matter if you're from New York or from Tennessee, like I am. Those sayings work for every single human being on this planet that speaks English. And every single one of them resonates because we've heard them all our lives. We've just never put them into practice on selling something or selling ourselves. And it's a matter of that. So I'm going to stop right there and let you jump back in.
Okay. Anybody else? Got some observations, thoughts, or questions?
It's actually really interesting, Kevin's perspective. I don't know if I will try. Well, I will try that because I feel like the people that I come across, they're very quick to get off the phone. So I think just using that approach probably would help. They tend to just want to know, like, what is this? Who are you? And like, how much is it gonna cost? So I don't know. It wouldn't hurt to try that approach.
Totally agree. And another thing is, when you're talking to them, you have to decide whether you're an independent broker or whether or not you're a senior field underwriter, because I approach people two different ways on that aspect. And you're wanting to offer them that. And by, saying that you're a senior field underwriter, it kind of gives you more credibility. So if you lead in with that type of stuff, it does help. And then, try not to box yourself in. Don't really look for that no, or don't give them that option on the no. Just kind of slide right into it, smiling, on to the next point.
Right.
And remember what I said earlier too, not because I said it, but because it's absolutely helpful to this whole process, is you are calling them because they wanted you to call them, right? They were looking for information. And if you can arm I guess you can call it arm your attitude with that knowledge, like I'm putting on a jacket or a bulletproof vest, and I'm calling you because you asked me to. right? In the world of sales, they talk about the puppy dog sale, right? Which just means that if you're trying to sell a puppy dog to somebody, what's the best way to do that? Let them take the puppy dog home for the weekend. Why? Because after they spend a whole weekend with it with their kids, they ain't bringing that dog back on Monday, right? The assumption is you wanted information. I'm here to provide that information to you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me. Now, in order for me to give you the information you want, you don't want me to give you information that doesn't relate to your situation, do you? No, you want me to give you information that's going to work for you. So in order to do that, I need to learn a little bit about you. Does that make sense, Mr. Jones? I love asking that. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Does that work for you? Those are little statements you can put at the end of statements that you make. It gets them to say yes based upon what you just told them. Is that fair? Does that make sense? That's what you want me to do for you, right? Give you information that's relevant. Okay.
Another thing is you automatically, I mean, like I said, you've got so limited amount of time in that first minute to do your elevator speech. And like I said, just funny, if I'm an independent agent, I want to let them know that I represent 30 to 40 of the most respected and well-known insurance companies, out there. And then I'd list off a couple: Mutual of Omaha, AIG, F&G, and make sure you mention Foresters. Some of us, as I said, anyway, make sure you mention Foresters because it's, thank you, Mike. It's a very well-known company in certain, it's like the Woodman of the world. Everybody knows that company that's been, that's got any age to them. So, if you throw some of those names out, it's just building your credibility. And that's what it's all about. You have a limited time to build your credibility, and to let your persona come across to them as somebody that wants to truly help them in one way, shape, or form because they asked for it. I didn't call you because I'm, got nothing better to do during the day. You put this in, hey, I don't know how your memory is, Cristofani, but I can't remember last month, let alone 2 or 3 months ago when you sent this in. And I'm just doing my job, to make sure as a follow-up that everything was, that we took care of you like we were supposed to when you requested that information. I've got bosses just like you've got a boss, and I have to explain why, hey, I haven't done my CQF, or why I haven't, filled out this, am I really helping the client? Is what, my boss will say if I don't do this. There's a million different ways that you can say it, but you just got to get it in your head, the why, and know your products.
Right. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, Kevin.
You're very welcome.
You're welcome.
Now, Miss Katie, if you're able, and I know you got a little one at home, but you've spent about a week and a half or so on the phone talking with some people. You've been having some conversations with people. You're gaining some interest with them. What lesson, and I know I'm putting you on the spot, and I'm not trying to be mean about it, but what has been one thing you've learned over this first few days in talking with folks?
I think it's just keeping a strong mindset and knowing that you're there to help them. Some people aren't always very nice, and you just kind of got to push through that and let the ones that are nice kind of overshadow the ones that aren't interested.
Okay. Yep. And my mom was a nurse, and she used to come home with stories when I was young of people that she was trying to help that didn't want them to help her. Right? Because they're uncomfortable, right? They're irritated. They've had a bad day. And then some junior schmucko salesperson calls them from their perspective, right? How do we break out of that mold, right? The way we break out of that mold is by letting them know, look, I'm an independent broker. My job is to take what I've learned and the carriers that I work with and find a solution that makes you happy. All right. If you're not satisfied, I've failed. And I take that personally. I don't like failure. I like helping people. I like serving people. That feeds my soul. So unlike maybe the 42 other people you've ever spoken with, I don't want to just throw numbers at you. Numbers don't mean anything. They have no value. All right, I'll give you an example. By the way, this is a story you can relate. I was talking with somebody the other day, and she said, I already got it taken care of, and I got myself a $50,000 policy for $150 a month, and I was so happy about that. And so just very quickly while I was on the phone with her, I ran a couple of numbers. And I said, well, ma'am, I'm glad that you've got this solved, but like Kevin referred to earlier, if there's a way I could bring more value to you for the same or less money, would that be of interest to you? And she said, what do you mean? Very skeptically. I said, well, I don't want to give you any numbers right off the top, but I'm here to tell you, I think I can probably knock that cost every month in half for the same amount of coverage. Is that something you're open to? If I could take the amount of money that you're telling me you just spent, $150 a month, if I could do the same thing for $75 a month, would you allow me the honor and the privilege of doing that research on your behalf? Would that bring value to you and your family to save $1,000 a year almost?
And that's why it's so important to spit out in that first couple seconds that you represent, you know, those quality carriers,
Yeah.
you know, respected carriers, because exactly what Mike just said, that's how he's able to do that. You tie those two things in together. And it's like I said, you can lead a horse to water, you can't make him drink. If I can save you $100 or $1,000 or whatever a year and you don't take it, you know.
I'm not the problem,
And,
right?
yeah, you can't fix stupid, and you know, that's why I said, you and don't think that, you know, you guys couldn't say that. I mean, I've got away with stuff like that, but I say it in a way that I've built up that, you know, camaraderie with whoever it is. I'm like, hey, you can't fix stupid. If I save you $500, you know, a year and you don't take it, that's on you, you know, and not me. But you got to be able to know your client, know who you're working with, and know, you know, the bounds and how far you can push them.
You know, when somebody says no to that question, it's because they're just so darn relieved the insurance thing is over. Right? Because whoever they talked to made it really, really complicated. Right? Our job is to make the process simple for them and to bring to them some solutions that are easy for them to choose from. Right? But that's why we spend time in the beginning, get to know them, learning about their family history, learning about their medical history, so that what we bring them addresses their needs for real. Because look, if you sat here and told me I got a 53-year-old that wants a $125,000 policy that lasts for them for the rest of their life, I could probably tell you how much that's going to cost. Mike, I got a 63-year-old female who wants $50,000 in coverage whole life that's going to last the rest of her life. I could probably give you a number on that. When you do this enough, you begin to know the ballparks. Right? So it's good to have some of that kind of off to the side. Got to be careful, though, because they might not qualify for it. And that's the challenge, why I just don't throw numbers out. Right? Because all of us, and I know, Les, you were there with a guy last week, and I'm not going to name the client's name, but you applied with company A and he got declined, and you had to come back with company B and find a solution. That's not bad on Les. That's sometimes the insurance carriers will underwrite certain conditions and another carrier won't. So how do you handle that? You have to build that relationship with the client so that if the first one comes back negative, you've already got a backup plan in place. That's why we do the CSAR. where we're writing down the different options from the different companies before we ever present solutions to the client. We already have a backup plan in place. So that if company A fails, we already know what we're going to do with company B. And that keeps the conversation going. I couldn't tell you the number of clients I've had that the first company was unsuccessful and I came back and pivoted to a secondary sale. I'll bet you at least a third of my policies that I write are not the first attempt. Because I've got a plan in place that if A doesn't work, I already know what we're going to do, and I just roll right into plan B. Does that make sense? Okay.
I
Lee,
also remember Mike's, did those books for you guys, and you can, everybody wants something for free. Everybody, no matter who you are, or you can be a billionaire. If you can get something free, you want it because you're a billionaire, and you didn't get that way by, turning down stuff. You've got those free books. Find a way, nonchalantly, hey, I need to confirm your email. I want to be able to send you these free books. We have a couple ebooks on insurance. It might help your decision making, if not today, in the future. Those, little things like that. Everybody wants something for free. And since Les has been so great on there, Mike, I think you ought to ask him, how he overcomes some of his objections or some of the objections that's come across him, because he's been doing it a long time too.
You read my mind. I was just about to go there. Mr. Les?
Yes, sir.
Any words of wisdom for all of us?
Well, I feel it's just like with, just regular day of life. Whenever you get, whatever the answer is, whether it's yes or no, you figure out why. And that's critical thinking. So when a person says, no, I don't want this, or yes, I want this, critical thinking is going to take you to a point where if they said yes, you pinpoint the points where, kind of sort of why, but when they say no, you have to I feel that, you regroup and figure out what they're saying no to. Is it the product, the presentation, the person? Because whatever it is, you need to know, because you can't conquer it unless you know. So it's kind of like an open book. And just like insurance, you can knock on any door and somebody's going to give you a different response. And you still have to know why, regardless on what it is, in order for you to handle the situation, whether it's yes or no.
And to piggyback on, you just made me reminded me of something, Les. To piggyback right on that, somebody told me a long time ago when I first got started doing this 20-something years ago, if they tell you no, if you've already lost it, because they're telling you no, the only thing you have to gain is information that's helpful to you. But you said you weren't interested. May I ask, is it because of the product, the carrier, or me? And I'm asking you to be honest, because even if the timing isn't right for you, if you can make me better, then I'm going to be able to help people even better. If it's the carrier, I can look at other carriers. Maybe you have a problem with Foresters or a problem with American Amicable, or you just don't like insurance companies from Texas, or whatever it is in their mind that's posing a problem. Is it the cost? What's the issue that's causing? Is it just timing? In other words, do you just kind of need to hit the snooze button on this and wait a month? Now, of course, we know about the guy that did that for me and then lost his life. So that's not my first choice, but sometimes it's just timing. And I wanted to also piggyback on something Kevin said a minute ago, because I just had a guy that I sent the ebook to about 4 months ago, and we're in the middle of filling out an application because of the ebook I sent him 4 months ago. He said, I finally got around to reading that ebook, and it made me be reminded that I needed to get back in touch with you. That's awesome. That's why it's there. Right? Now, when I sent it 4 months ago, would I have preferred he called me then? Well, of course. Did he? No. Did he call me now? Yeah. 4 months later, I'm happy with that. Still going to be a sale when we get the application finished. Okay. So great points there, Les. Malik, any questions or comments, sir? I want to give you an opportunity. You're the only one who hasn't spoken yet.
Well, for me, it's I honestly think that a lot of the times the objection is just based on the person that's presenting it. So usually when I mean, I know you're not supposed to take it personal, but if a guy says, "Oh, I need to think about it," or something, it's like I didn't do an effective job in explaining, how everything works, or making him comfortable enough to go with me. Because a lot of the times, like if you're 70 and you have no savings, a life insurance policy is like really a no-brainer. So it's not really the product that's the issue. It's just the way I presented it. So I just gotta, try to refine as best I can every time I get a no.
Yeah, it's learning. One of the principles of SFG is massive action and constant correction. And what I mean by that is to just do it and learn and do it as you learn and do it as you learn and do it as you learn. Right? I've said many times to you guys, look, there's a lot to learn to get good at this, because there's a lot to learn to get good at this. Right? And we're all going to learn and get licensed, and that's just the beginning of the learning process, right? Then you go through our training program, and the first time you go through it, you're going to learn some of that information, but you're not going to learn all of it. Like Heather told us a couple weeks ago, yeah, I've watched April McCrimmon's presentation 9 times. I love that. That's studying your craft, right? I heard somebody say a long time ago that if you spend 15 minutes a day studying your craft, in 3 years, you will be an expert at that craft. If you're only spending 15 minutes a day. Now, in our case, when you're getting started, you got different carriers to learn. Each carrier has different products, which is why we recommend you pick 1 or 2 or 3 carriers to begin with and concentrate on learning them and their products. And then as you start gaining some experience, you'll be able to branch out into those other carriers that are out there for us to tap into. Okay. Oftentimes, and I'm going to finish with this, oftentimes what new people want is this. If the client says this, what do I say? Give me the script that I'm supposed to say if the client says this. And if the client says this, give me the script for that. And the client says this, give me the script for that. That's what we all want in the beginning. At least that's what I wanted. And I think it's true for a lot of people. The problem is, I'm not a big fan of that. I call it the cookie cutter approach to sales. I'd rather be more genuine, real, and honest with people and ask if they raise an objection. Well, tell me more about that. What do you mean by that? Goes back to what Les was saying about knowing why they said what they said. Right? Why are they raising that objection?
Yeah.
When you learn why, you can then address their why. Go ahead, Les.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, Mike, and then just kind of sort of just comment on what you're saying as well. If we buy the leads from Symmetry, we have somewhat of an advantage because we got those leads from the people who were requesting it. So we kind of sort of have a hidden gem or gem. And now what we need to do is just get our shovel and dig for it. And the digging part is the information that we're going to get from the people until we find that hidden gem somewhere, which is that lead. And then it's almost like bingo, we got it. And that's where the joy and the comfort comes in at, but you have to dig. You have to dig until you find what you're looking for.
Yeah.
And basically, when I say what you're looking for is basically what the client's need is as far as what they're trying to accomplish.
Yep. Well, it's like I said in the beginning, what we do is different. Our job is to learn about them well enough to find a solution that works for them, not that works for us. Okay, so I hope that this was helpful to everybody. We'll be talking about this as we roll forward because this is the process. We're always going to be learning and sharing and getting better. When I get some numbers solidified, probably by next week's meeting, we're going to have, I think, some very exciting news to share. But I got to get some solidification on that. But just everybody's doing a really good job at getting started and getting out there, right? Some of you are having some success in getting some applications submitted. Some of you got some folks on the front. Stay on them, move them through, keep them going towards that solution that works for them. If you need me, by all means, reach out to me. If you need Kevin, by all means, reach out to Kevin. You know, feel free, by the way, on Slack to start reaching out and connecting with each other. Right? This is a everybody wins team. So I appreciate you guys. I hope this was helpful tonight. If you are just getting this on the recording because you weren't at the live meeting and you have some follow-up questions, please make sure you reach out so we can get your questions answered as well. Okay? God bless and good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Good
guys.
night.